So it is with great pleasure, and yes, we do have the best surprise guest after Bridget that you could have here today. She just wasn't available, she's too busy with Florida and the printing presses. But we are really so thrilled to have one of the most important Irishmen and indeed women with us today. A surprise for everybody happened over the weekend when our wonderful president said he would love to attend these celebrations. So without further ado, would you welcome please President Higgins and Sabina Higgins to the stage. Thank you.
You're all very welcome to the Embassy of Ireland, and happy St. Bridget's Day to all. For many of us, in his inaugural address, the President said that we must seek to build together an active citizenship, one based on participation, equality, respect for all, and the flowering of creativity. Since then, the President, actively supported by Sabina, has more than discharged that mandate. The themes and values that we affirm and celebrate on St. Bridget's Day 2018, especially around the full participation of women, have been at the heart of the presidency of Michael D. Higgins. So we are all delighted that the President and Sabina have once again crossed the Irish Sea to be with us on Lá Fhéile Bríde to celebrate the creativity of women. Agwina Ushla, please give a very warm welcome to Uachtarán Nahiri.
Ambassador Secretary Cora Colton na Cora Stoit Sally Mulready is a Colton the Parliament Ambassador Ian Ilya Sakorja an Gedal Shias Minlam Firkin Buikas a Gualia Basacht and Firkit Porja a Darish of Rome Haines Revma Van Kale Sidinus Yatsanato Etiash the Lum. Agus tá áthas ar bhfuil seansam trísliú leis le ambassador na hÉireann Adrian agus a bhain céile aislinn as an ochchaid iontach seo tá agrathach in honor den Bríd agus do muintir na hÉireann. I must say what a great pleasure it is for Sabina and I to be here today in the Embassy of Ireland in London to celebrate Lá Fhéile Bríde, St. Bridget's Day. It is particularly pleasing to be here and to see so many extraordinary, talented, wonderful women who have contributed in so many different spheres of life to what is our contemporary world. I think what is very interesting to me as well is to see where very often we speak when we are in modes of commemoration of the connections between Ireland and the United Kingdom, between all of our peoples. But I looking at the biographies of the people who've been presenting this afternoon and the contribution that they have made, ignoring borders, ignoring boundaries, to all the different aspects of life is extraordinary. And really, when I take them as well, it's a pleasure to always meet Poland and also to hear Camille singing those songs that could go anywhere and that invoke the human spirit. I think tomorrow, when I came in November to give a paper on what I felt was the neglected sister, Eva Go-Booth, and to the British TUC, and I'm so glad it was referred to again. I think that she's such an extraordinarily wonderful contributor. On her headstone is written, "Life that is love is God." And I think St. Bridget would have approved of that. And when I think, in a way, the Celtic world, St. Bridget's Day or Imbolc marks the beginning of spring, and the passing from periods of darkness into light. And I think St. Bridget, it's very important, broke the traditions and the conventions of her time. She is, of course, a bishop. And in the great presentations we've had this afternoon, but she's invoked as an Irish woman who ensured her voice was heard in a male-dominated world. So Sabina and I were absolutely pleased. And I have paid tribute in our own language to the Ambassador, Adrian and Tashlin, and their staff, for organising such an event as this, in celebrating the Crochiocht, which is a beautiful Irish word, the creativity of women in both parts of both in Ireland and in the United Kingdom, in their contributions across fields that include science, technology, arts, politics, journalism, literature, music, comedy and design. Tomorrow morning when I visit Eva Booth's grave and invoke again and recall her emancipatory spirit, I actually am convinced also we are now in a period of time where our world, whether it is tackling climate change, whether it is tackling sustainable development, democracy, full participation, new forms of democracy, economics, politics or whatever, needs the transformative, full, central contribution of women and men. And I think that those who have been contributing this afternoon are just give us great hope. It's not only that they give us great hope, but they've actually achieved so much already. I think I spoke about the two sisters. It tells us something about our island and the way we construct and negotiate memory. It is her sister Constance Markovic and the image of her revolver as she hands over her weapon at the end of when she has surrendered, that has dominated, if you like, the story of these two sisters. But what of somebody who rejects their aristocratic background, arrives in Manchester, organises the bar ladies, works and says that it is outrageous that women can't be in trade unions, as well as that represents those who have, as we have heard, the great artists such as acrobats, circus workers, she represented them, and then goes on, in fact, and puts side by side all the issues of equality and the suffragette movement, passive the whole question of the outrageous forms of war. And with Esther Roper goes on to produce so much that is empowering. And I think as well is able to move between our two islands, between London and Dublin at times of the national struggle, identifying with the position of people in prison. And it's important that here in 2018 we are remembering people like that. Because for a long while it wasn't only that we gave, if you like, privilege to just one sister and ignored the other. It is that we also perhaps ignored the message of both in relation to equality, particularly when it was in relation to matters of gender. After all, it was at the burial of Constance Markovic, some of the leaders of our state would say, we will never have their like again. But at the same time went on then in the Conditions of Employment Act of 1936, said it was important to prevent women from designated occupations. And this was, after all, again, I think, this was commented upon by Helena Maloney, a veteran of the Irish Citizen Army in 1916, a leader of the Irish Women Workers Union, and later president of the Irish Trade Union Congress. I think she was referred, one of my predecessors, Emma de Valera, referred to Helena Maloney as one of the great patriotic women of our time. But I have to say as well, not only he, but many of the men who were in Parliament at the time, from all sides, listened politely to the case that Helena Maloney had made for the equality of women and their right to participate in the fullest sense. I think that despite what was our revolution, I think the rights of women, it was really the moment of the establishment of our state was followed by a long period that was more than a twilight. There were times when it was indeed darkness. And I think this is a great year, 2018, where we're celebrating the representation of the People Act of Act 1918. Sometimes says that gave votes to women, but no, it gave votes to women who were over 30 and had a property qualification or had an attachment to some of their husband's property. And it would be later when that struggle goes on. In fact, it is women again who are making the case for the extension and the full realisation of rights for women in a parliamentary sense. And of course, Constance Markovic, who goes on, if you like, to be the first female parliamentarian elected to the British Parliament, but who chose not to take her seat in Westminster, but in Dáil Éireann. We have to think as well that after the appointment in 1919 of a first woman minister, how long did it take for a woman to sit in an Irish cabinet as a full member? Again, too long. But what I am absolutely convinced about in 2018, and really as I visit and pay honour to Eva Gorbruth and Constance and all of those other women, and those women in the suffrage movement, the different, and all of their wonderful arguments with each other. Some of them, for example, were simply interested in the vote, others interested in the votes and the right to join a trade union. Eva Gorbruth was interested in them all. And it is there that even in relation to issues of gender, she is the person who says that sex is something upon which a panoply of foolishness has been constructed by male arrogance. And I think as well as this, which is very, very interesting, is that the marvellous, just want to pay so tribute to her biographer, without whom I couldn't have given that paper last year. And Sonia Tiernan is in fact a brilliant, brilliant historian. And one of the great events we're after in 2016. And if you wanted to contrast the way we in fact remembered the founding events of our state, women were put back into history, and that was made possible by the fact that in all the different intellectual areas of life, in both Ireland, the United Kingdom and in Europe, women in fact are beginning in fact to have their place recognised. But it is a journey that is far from finished. But I want to say again, in Lá Fhéile Bríde, on this day when we celebrate and invoke St. Bridget, we celebrate her as somebody who was above all else, somebody who was not simply emancipatory, but realised as well in the negotiation between gods and men and nature and light and darkness, it would be very foolish indeed to neglect for a single second the woman's experience. Dar banner the Lá Fhéile Bríde. And it's a celebration of all of the creativity of both the contemporary Irish women in Ireland and those with connections to Ireland.
Ring the bell.